Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, nerd and nerdettes. Now today's video is going to be a little bit different. There's two reasons for this. One is that the Warhammer game just came out and I have not had time to go out and do any archery because, priorities. And the second thing is I really just wanted to give my take on kind of the negativity that's been going around with all the recent fantasy and sci-fi shows, i.e. Acolyte, the Rings of Power. How I think the response, the loudest voices on YouTube in that field tend to betray the very morals and ethics that those stories are attempting to give to us. Most stories in history have been written in order to explain or teach.
All men must die, but for every man his death is an accident. And even if he knows it and consents to it, an unjustifiable violation. Well, you may agree with the words or not, but those are the keyspring of the laws of the ring.
How to deal with things we can't understand as humans, death, the things that are common to us, love, morality, righteousness, right, wrong, all of those things. And Lord of the Rings as a whole, written by a very deeply Catholic Tolkien after World War I and the trauma of that, has a lot to do with the dichotomy of good and evil. There's no hint of moral relativism in his works. It's very clear cut who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. The show is diving a lot into moral relativity, where there's not really a good or bad. There's a bad presence, bad people, the underlings are not inherently evil, showing the orc family and things like that. I think the thing that I have a problem with is going to be the way in which people are responding to those and reviewing those and talking about those. Because, as I said just a second ago, stories are meant to teach. They are meant to show us a way how to act, how to behave, how to be righteous or good. People get so caught up in following the exact lore of the story and trying to defend that everything is done in a way that the author intended, which is very important, don't get me wrong. I think the more important thing is going to be trying to take the morals or the things that you gleaned from those stories, what helped create you and give you an understanding of a certain aspect of life, applying that to your actual life and not getting so upset about things online. Because I feel with certain works, while it's not all allegorical, they do a great job teaching you a way to be honorable. Aragorn is a great example of strong selflessness in an individual. He basically gave away all his desires, his love for Arwen, to be a ranger, Dunedain ranger, and in doing so, he went into the forest and he fought the orcs and things that tried to go into the Shire. The Dunedain rangers were a very big presence in making sure that the Shire was remained safe, and they never knew it because their acts were selfless. Their heroism was unsung. And it wasn't about being the loudest voice or looking for accolades. It was just about doing the right thing because it was the right thing to do. The goal of this video is not to name names and say, don't do what this person does or this reviewer says. And so I want to be very careful here to not name any particular person or any one individual who I feel is, doing a bad job of being an honorable individual or sharing the traits that you should have gleaned from those stories to your actual life. But what I simply want to say is that stories teach us how to behave in the real world, because this is where we exist. We don't exist online. We don't exist in this bubble here. Our life is how we interact with those around us and in our circle. And in applying those morals and those teachings from those books that you love, it helps to create an idea of what an honorable hero looks like, or how an honorable hero deals with conflict. I will simply say none of that has to do with going on and trying to disparage something with vitriol. You can of course disagree with the choices they make, the fact that it fundamentally underlies basically what I feel to be the main works of Tolkien in the idea of a good and an evil and a servitude. Galadriel herself is much more like Achilles or a James Bond, let's say, where those characters never really appealed to me in any way because overall they are selfish, they are cocksure, they tend to believe they're the only ones who can fix a problem as opposed to relying on those around them. And I think that's another thing that made Lord of the Rings so special, was that the fellowship of the ring. You had that band of people coming together for a common good, and they were selflessly putting themselves in danger as a crew, and they bonded together and they grew together, as opposed to living on an island as you had with like an Achilles, or you have with, you know, James Bond. And that type of arrogant, overly confident character is not really a paragon of a hero that I think should be embodied by individuals. And on the sci-fi side, as someone whose channel is named after a very obscure Legends Star Wars character, the state of the Star Wars universe is unfortunately not super great either. It's kind of gone in the same moral relativity with the Acolyte, as far as the good and the evil, blurring the lines between who is the hero and who is the villain, making it less clear cut. And it falls into that same idea where there's not a true good person or a true bad person. There's shades of gray for everything. But in the same way, the things that you learn from Star Wars and what I think people are drawn to is that selfless nature of the Jedi, kind of the perfect samurai type character, where it's about the good of the common people. You are there as a protector. You are not there as an aggressor or an adversary. And I think the vitriol coming from a lot of the people reviewing Star Wars is counter to what is basically the ideals of what you strive to have. Is very much counter to the ideals that the characters you love aspire to. And so the most important thing to me is stories teach you how to behave when you're out and about. These stories many times help form a foundation for what we view in the world, how we view things, how we view conflict, how we view love, how we view passion. And taking those and applying those to your life is one of the great things that stories can give us. But you can't lose sight of that and focus so much on the story itself that is being written now that it blinds you to the morals that it is teaching you and what helped you fall in love with it in the first place. Lord of the Rings, of course, is going to always hold a special place in my heart. It got me into archery. It got me into weaponry, trying to replicate that, trying to, you know, find out if I could use weapons in a certain way. But the thing that I think stuck out most to me was the sense of right and wrong and the selflessness and the sacrificial good of putting yourself second in order to help the betterment of the population and those around you. And that's the thing that stuck with me the most from those stories. And so I just challenge all of you guys out there. You know, I obviously do not have any real love for the Rings of Power. I think there's a way it can be discussed that's not so vitriolic. And I just want to say, you know, take the lessons from the stories you love and apply it to the real world. Because if you're attacking an individual, that has ramifications in real life. And those are things that I think get overlooked because it feels like it's just going out into ether, when in reality, it can affect an individual. So be selfless, compassionate, kind, noble, heroic. All else fails, you still have the original works to fall back on. There's still the original Lord of the Rings. There's the Silmarillion. I read a lot of Legends books because I love those stories. And I don't care if it's not canon anymore because I like the way in which they're presented. I like the way in which the heroes act. And I enjoy the morals it teaches, so to say. So anyways, that's going to be it for today. I'm still working on the new fleet of arrows here. So those will be coming into play real soon. But right now I'm probably going to play Warhammer again. So I'll see you out in a new video sometime next week, probably.